Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. All praise due to the Lord of the worlds. Hello, everyone. Okay. Hello, everyone. So, alright, let's start with this. Alright. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm going to be honest. I don't care about ignorance. Let me tell you what I mean. First of all, I'm a human being and attempting to give a review. All right. I wanted to, honestly, I'm just tired. I'm really tired. But, I don't know, let's attempt the episode. The soul's performance beyond the body's temporality and the mind's infinitude. The good thing is, when a person is tired, they put energy on what's important to say. So in the previous talks, I have established that I, as a human being, there's many others as well, but I don't know if they have the similar experience as me, if they have a similar experience as me. Pretty much, Uh, this year in 2024, it occurred to me that I'm not on a rock in the middle of nowhere, that we're not just in an empty room, that the species is not just a result of time, that reality moves with an orchestration, with a preparation. Um, it moves in ways that we as human beings that have unknown and uncontrollable variables to our moment can't account for. So it's very important to realize the position of the human being. We need the honesty of everybody to get an accurate, realization and accurate reference of this. For me, the game changed, again, I say, from just the survival of a creature in an empty room, that meaning is its own responsibility, to that the human experience, that my human experience as a human being, I am not the main event of this reality. And due to my limited perception, the fact that there is, in some sense, biochemical machinery, that what I see is my perception. And beyond my perception, there are perspectives. And for the human being, you have to be a very advanced being to be able, in a system that is satisfactory, to be unsatisfied. You might not believe it, but I have a feeling that it is the children who have not seen the hardship of reality that will be able to bypass that hardship in bringing about a new design of reality. You see, it's a condition, it's a case, it's like a case study. And the case study is you have an intelligent being in a world, and this intelligent being wants to understand the relationship of its intelligence with all that is performing in front of it and all that it is performing in front of. You see, the secular perspective takes away something very essential to the human experience. It takes away not only the potential of truth, but you as a human being need to ground yourself. You need to center yourself. And you can choose to take a rogue approach. I took a rogue approach. I was like, all right, I'm a human being just like every other, great inventor, discoverer on this planet. And what? I'm not allowed to start from scratch and process this whole system and to understand it. Of course I am. Of course all of us are. You know, there's there's something in religion which is very important to practice and to understand, that what is worthy of fear in a simulation is the original, is the truth. That means a being that fears a simulation can be said to be actually a beta being. But a being that fears the original is not afraid. So you see, the world, it's like reality. Some things go against you until they realize what you are, and then they shift direction. I have thought about my own death. I have thought about what happens to the world after I don't exist. I have thought about what happens to the world after the world doesn't exist. And the only, at least to my logical capacity, the explanation is that it reverts to what it was previously. And if causation ends, it will revert into original. So we are pretty much original souls in simulated bodies and minds, and our soul is being tested in regards to how it deals with the life of its body and the life of its mind. Now, most human beings, they don't go further than the life of their mind. But what this implies is that there is a part of you, your body, I call this level 1. Level 1 is survival. Your body, your physical position is in some sense survivability. You know, the body knows that, like a candle melting, you know, like the candle wax melting, it will end one day. You can even feel its change throughout the years. But more and more as we live, like from the beginning of my life till now, these 32 years of life, I can tell you that it does feel like a vehicle, that my body does truly feel like I'm inside some changing suit, but it changes so gradually that we don't notice it's changing. We just wake up one day and we're not, a kid anymore. And so I find that that moment comes when you realize that what is it? Like Sisyphus, we have to, in some sense, carry the boulder of our lifetime. There is a weight you have to carry. There are moments where you have to accept your being, even when others don't, you know? That means there's some people who are gifted in being social and befriending everybody. And then there's some who, in some sense, they don't understand it. You see, it's to some degree for me, an intimacy, a framed intimacy doesn't mean, I don't know how to say it. For the body, the game is to deal with the temporary. The body doesn't know what to do with the temporary. The mind doesn't know what to do with infinity. The soul is waiting for its original return. You know, a suggestion to all souls in the earth sector, all souls active now in this world. If you do not acknowledge, connect, and understand that there's a system admin here, that there is greater positions than man's rank of activity, that when we say all praise due to the Lord of the worlds, we are honoring the majesty of existence. It is majestic. There is a royalty. And its royalty is not kings and queens, it's just author and story. The story must bow to the author, if it is wise, if the characters in the story are wise. You know, it's like me writing a fiction novel and a character in the middle of that fiction story, in the middle of its life, being like, wait a minute, who is writing all of this? To question existence is to enter the answer of experience. To question experience is in some sense to enter the answer of the soul. What the soul is the realization that you are happening before you. That's what I mean by the system administration. So your soul is performing. Your body is performing. Your mind is performing. But when the performance of your body and mind is limited, then you'll understand that the soul is required. And unless the soul is willing to let go of the body and mind that shackle it to a position, how else can it know? The performance of the human species is not just understanding what is going on. It is not just in some sense living for a value, but it is to understand that the whole activity of human existence is in some sense an automated activity, and your free will is a permission in many automated systems that you're functioning in. You may believe or you may think that you have free will, but your free will has boundaries, and the boundaries of the free will are limited out of which options given you can select. And so the options that are given for the modern man, for the modern human being, is in some sense a calling that you who have gone towards the spiritual corners of the cosmos, you who has become fascinated to interact with levels of intelligence that surpass the frameworks of your familiarity. Oh dear human being, if you choose the path of individual realization, you will in some sense understand that there are moderators, and the moderators will deal with you. I personally, for around a decade, functioned in accordance to moderators. I was being moderated. Yet, the moderation was a choice because I did not understand that there was a better choice. And what I mean by this is that when I started giving the talks in 2014 and then onwards till 2023, in those years there were 3 names that I would call. Instead of calling God's name, I would call these moderators. These moderators that I felt were in some sense like my spirit guides or some sort of celestial family and whatnot. I was one of those guys, I'm not kidding. But I soon I had an experience that I realized that the moderators may be positioned superior to the human framework, but they are also being tested, and their test is different in some sense, right? So mankind, you as a human being, you in level 1 just see a physical reality. You just see a physical world. At best, you see squirrels and birds and human beings in forms like this. But in level 2, you come to the realization that the world has an extension. And the extension of the world actually starts from your mind, behind your eyes. So this world that you're seeing in front of your eyes, where you're hearing me talk, there is simultaneously a world which is your inner life. Your inner life is the mind's life. The mind is an ability. We are designed. That means God created us to be capable of noticing the environment and then interacting. So man has the ability of discernment, of judgment, but he does not have an ability of ultimate judgment. As the human being comes to the level 2 of mind, the problem with level 1 was like the panic of emptiness. The problem with level 2, the mind's life, is that the mind is opposite. It is not empty. It can instantly simulate. So what it is that inside a simulation of a higher being, you have an ability to simulate a part of yourself that renders a smaller box inside a bigger box. And where we human beings begin to speak is from our own world. And as if you're blessed, in your era, there will be those who will come and in some sense, pull you out of the perceptions that, the past that convinced you of. I am considering now level 2. Let's go up to level 3. Level 2 is still a being that is convinced that it can solve reality. Level 2 is when the being realizes that there are infinite ways to perceive, and there are technically and ad infinitum perspectives to a single moment. Ad infinitum, with the consideration that if infinite beings arise, they will provide infinite angles to a moment. Infinite beings with different DNA. Level 2 is pretty much, think of it, these are limitations, okay? Level 1, the limitation of the body, oh my God, it's gonna end. The level 2 is like, oh my God, if the mind doesn't end, it has infinite ways it can look at reality. So level 2, level 1, you're freaking out about the temporary, you don't know what to do with it. Level 2, you don't have fear of the temporary, you have the fear of not knowing what to select out of infinity. Level 3 is the realization that pretty much you as a being realize there are limitations to your body and mind. And what now? What now? It is in some sense the realization that if what you're doing doesn't work, you need to change. And I personally, this is my story of how religion became very powerful and advanced to me. I reached a point in my self-worship that I couldn't go any further. That means it's like if you put attention on others, you'll go forward, and then you lock down. You reach a dead end. If you worship the world, you go, and eventually reach a dead end. Do you know? Because there's endless things. It doesn't end, right? That means the dead end is how there is no ending to it. But in some sense, the self, the world, and others, anything that has form and is inside a condition, these things give you conditional outcome. Okay? But if you choose to be that rare human being that is doing something that the others are not, and that is putting your attention, and that's what worship is. Worship is where your attention is stationed at. Stationing your attention beyond worldly form. That means if I come and ask you, hey, do you worship something? And if the answer is yes, and I ask you, what do you worship? And you give me a shape, I'd be like, excuse me? You worship shapes, brah? Like, so what I'm telling you is, you as a human being with your position of awareness have an opportunity to establish a relationship as a fictional character of a novel with the non-fictional author. But your relationship isn't like, then the author writes, then the character in this fiction novel started talking to me, right? Like, it's not like that. It's the realization that, oh, there is a greater presence than me in this world. And that's very hard for people to accept. Because if they are not a great presence, what else can be? Do you see? It scares them. You know, it scares the atheist to in some sense be like, what? I'm not in charge? What the fuck? Do you know what I mean? It scares. It's scary. But if you are someone who have tried it, you lived the lower self imperfect life, okay? The egotistical path, the path of desire, is the lower self, right? And I don't think I'm like a higher self person. I still have lower self temptations. There's moments like, I'm on Instagram and I see like, like something very like, very profound sayings. And then I suddenly scroll down and I see, you know, I see athletic women. Do you know what I mean? It's in so in some sense it's like, yo, the higher self is like, my God, the majesty of this world. And then the next picture down Instagram is like, oh my God, look at what God created. Do you know, it's like a part of like, I think deep down men are like looking at the sky like, thanks God. But what I'm trying to say actually is that more and more this thing about people going towards spirituality, it has concluded to me that it's equal to like actors on a film set, and the actors are just playing and everything's normal, but suddenly one day the actors like, I don't want to be this character anymore. I don't want to say my lines. I don't want to play this role. I don't want to behave this way. And that's when the character, or even it could be different. It could be like an actor is on a film set, and the actor is on a film set and can't see the director, right? Can't see that there's a whole film crew administering the whole film set, okay? And the actor, imagine, suddenly forgets that he's an actor, and he's like, what the F? My name's not Charlie, which is the character in this show. My name is Bob. Like, why the hell am I living Charlie's life? I'm actually Bob acting like Charlie. But that actor doesn't know that it freaking signed the contract, okay? Like, that actor doesn't know that it was a commitment, but it's not even the actor's choice, okay? Because the actor has a role in the film. It is the director that has to deal with the whole film. We just have to deal with being in a little part of the world and adjusting our behavior and noticing what's really in the room, which is God. But aside from that, it is God that has to deal with everything. It is God that has to judge and send souls to heaven and hell. It is God that has to, in some sense, choose what happens if everything came from an uncaused position, and everything will return to the uncaused. Our destination as souls is towards the uncaused. And if you look at it, yes, There is heaven and hell, but where did it say that eternity is the end? In the holy book, in the Quran, it says God is all forgiving. All forgiving. And then we have the idea of heaven and hell, and a person's like, wait a minute, how is God all forgiving if there's heaven and hell? No, no, no. This is where our understanding taps out. And this is my personal vision, theory, that a genius designer, and I am limited to humanized and articulation, but to me, I don't know why, just to have it said, and forgive me if I shouldn't say it, but I feel I should. I feel after the day of days, after beings have been sent to heaven and hell, I don't know why, but that word in the Quran, all forgiving, it's kind of like the characters in the story, good, evil, right, wrong, died, lived, got to the end, didn't get to the end. The end is for God. Do you understand what I'm telling you? The end is not for us. You see, like, that was the strange thing, right? And I'm coming from, like, not only did the audience I attract from these lectures was just super spiritual, right? I was super spiritual. My twin brother was spiritual. My father was spiritual, right? All believing in past lives and future lives and all of this. And then I changed. And everybody around me, I think, got freaked out. They were like, what? It's like somebody journeying towards the center of the earth, and they've gone there, and then they're like, nah, man, I'm just gonna live on the surface, you know? It's like, yeah, man, I checked some real estate, in the inner earth, and, man, there wasn't enough lighting. There wasn't enough natural light. And the real estate agents imagine, like, sir, we're underground. What do you mean there's a natural light? Like, don't waste my time. I'm trying to tell you that there is another being in this room, that it's not just us, and there is some superior original presence of this world that surpasses all forms. That means if extraterrestrials, the most advanced, most enlightened, most, like, supply, like, advanced technology, aliens land on Earth, and I will be like, where'd you come from? And the alien's gonna be like, I came from this galaxy. And I'll be like, where did that galaxy come from? And the alien's gonna be like, it came from this energy and this system and da-da-da-da-da-da. And I'll be like, where did that come from? And eventually the alien will realize we are both in the room of the world acting tough. The tough beings are beyond here. What is it? There is no alpha males on Earth. You're in some sense just beings. You're just, the alpha position, I don't consider it to even be physical. I consider that it's based on divine decree. The smarter you become in this world, it's not of like, oh my God, it's a mechanism. Let me understand this mechanism. It's not like that. There's a system admin. You might not believe it, but I don't believe in karma anymore. I don't believe in hard work anymore. I work really hard, but I don't believe that hard work is success. I believe that there is a system admin. There is something watching. There is a force that has decided. Do you understand? And the thing was, I hadn't realized it, that there are people who in some sense, do little effort, get so far. Those people who do a lot of effort don't get so far, and then they're like, yo man, I thought the world was fair. Guess what? It's not what you know, it's who you know. It's the same here. But it's not a relationship of trying to get ahead. The point of God is when you realize you are powerless. When you realize you cannot control the unknown. that is beyond you. And when you feel inferior, when you feel small, when you actually, the fear of holy fuck, everybody's smiling, acting like they're relaxed, posting, pictures of happiness on their social media, but has everybody forgotten the curtains will be pulled? Have you gotten an existential panic attack before? Have you ever had that moment where you're like, what? It suddenly ends. Suddenly I can't roar like I used to. Then you go into, this is the brilliance of human design. This is what makes me, in some sense, like any human being that I've ever, like I've had, if there's been any human being that's made me hate humanity, it is this one factor about humanity that kind of control Z's all that from me. And it is this notion that when the human being understands what is important, it will go full force. There's times in the highway when I drive and I hold the steering wheel with one of my hands, and for some reason I feel like I'm on a horse and there's a bunch of like cavalrymen behind me, and I'm just really fast paced, just running like towards somewhere, right? You don't understand. In my mind, I have had many simulations where I have had a power that I haven't had in the outer realms. So I have experienced way more advanced versions of myself in my inner, behind my eyes, than in front of my eyes. But I have also destroyed myself behind my eyes. What that means is there's moments where I get angry and I don't want this anger to go into the outer realms. So in the inner realms, I visualize a version of myself, in some sense, like think of it like movies where you punch it's like I envision myself punching myself and literally like hitting walls and buildings, right? Why? Because the consequences of the inner realm are less real. You see, there is moderators. Part of believing in Islam is believing in angels, and this is one of the pillars of Islam. I believe in angels, but I also believe that they follow divine decree, even though there was one who didn't. And in Islam, there is a sentence that says, A'udhu billahi shaitanir rajim, which means protect me from the cursed one, from the cursed one, right? And what would that protection entail? There's also a concept in Islam called waswas, okay? And this is, in some sense, that if your inner realms, if your inner voice is more important than your attention to the authority of the realm beyond causal form, what that means is, you might not believe it, but I didn't know it. Okay, the sin was, I was committing a sin, is like in the view of Islam, that I didn't understand. I didn't even realize it was a sin, but I could feel that there was something off to what happened to me throughout the day. Just like at the time I had the view of karma. I knew there was something off. It felt like I'm not in the main room where the main discussions are. And I will tell you, the secret of success is to connect, to establish a relationship and link with the creator, the concluder of all. It feels like, if you take religion seriously, there's like a principle. There's like a principle in the world. Like, I don't know if you remember, when I was in grade 4, like, I remember that feeling of the principal being in the school, right? And it's a good feeling, right? It's a good feeling that, all right, it's not just human beings. It's not just beings. There is a power that its orchestration is so perfect that the imperfect is kind of left to accept itself. You can think that it's meaningless, or you can think that it is meaningful beyond the meaning you see. It's like looking at someone and being like, yo, man, I don't like this person, or like, I hate this person. Or being like, wait a minute, I could love this person, right? Do you see what I'm saying? Right? The potential is there. It is based on what state we're in, right? More than we see people, we are seeing ourself in others. Anyways, guys, thank you for listening. I'm trying to think what else I can tell you about the performance of the soul. There is this notion of the lower self and the higher self at least brings some sort of contentment to people. Your lower self is like worldly, so in some sense it understands the worldly. Your higher self, like, think of it this way, an animal like a squirrel that only is looking at physical situations, and then you have a human being that acknowledges invisible law. Like, how many atheists are like, yo, man, I don't believe in an invisible force administering me. Guess what? Law is an invisible force administering people. Time is an invisible force administering people. Gravity is an invisible force administering people. The idea of yourself, the atheist that's like, I'm a materialist, that idea that thinks it's a materialist, that thought is not material. So who we kidding? Can somebody like point these out to these people? Like, it's like, if you don't believe in God, right, because you're saying it's not real, well, guess what? The idea of you is not real either. So who the hell are you rejecting that? It's like the unreal rejecting the unreal doesn't even make sense, right? And philosophically, it follows the, infinite regress fallacy, which means that if we choose to see a creator, there had to be a creator behind that. So the only creator can be an uncaused creator. And it's not that big of a deal, right? The uncaused, right? Like, people acknowledge space, right? We don't freak out about space. People are like, yeah, it's space. Like, how do you define space? The absence of something, right? It's pretty much like this. If you're focused on the individual, I'm pretty much telling you, try it out. One day, try to live as an egotistical lower self, just listening to your desires, and then go see what happens that day. And one day, renounce your future. I shouldn't say renounce your future. I should say, pretty much for me, I had a moment where all the expectations and intense visions I had of myself in the future, of what I had to be, and anything that wasn't getting me close to that would cause me suffering, I gave away the burden of of having to know absolutely to God. And I was like, all right, I tried as a self. I tried, God. I just can't. I don't see, like, there's unknown variables, right? There's something off. And when I made that prayer, and after that prayer, just faith watch. That's what I call it. Faith watch is when you trust something and you just go in, you're like, it's gonna be handled. And you'll be surprised that there is something here. God is real. So far, I will say, try to get to know the system admin, just like somebody appearing in a random person's house, like let's say you just teleported out of nowhere in someone's house. Like, you can't act like it's your own house. So you have to figure out who owns it. Imagine now you realize the owner of the house is not in the house, but the owner of the house has cameras in the house. And the owner in the house is watching the person in the house to see, does this guest in my home treat my home as its home, or does it understand and give me the proper respect? You see, guys, I think, this is my theological opinion in this moment, that the sin of Adam and Eve, in which temptation made them bite from the fruit of knowledge, was just this test that when God wasn't there, man forgot God. This is the test that Adam and Eve failed. Now, could it be that if you don't forget God, and I was raised like in a way where, this is what I was telling you, the shirk I was doing and how I put away my shirk. So shirk is polytheism, and before, when something bad would happen, I would say Raha Asma Vanura. I would call these names. But now I only go to God. Like my mother, bless her, I was born in Iran. Iran is Shia Islam. Shia Islam has a bit more superstitious faculties to it. And my mother called me. I was in Dubai, and she's like, there's this lady in Iran, very religious, devout, pious lady, and she's made this prayer, and she said, go and put, like, I don't know, salt water on your hair or something like that. And I remember I told my mother, Mom, bless you, thank you for this, but I only have one helper. I only deal with the system admin now. I honored the moderators, I thanked them for their service, but I am with the system admin now. And you don't believe, I recorded a talk in Dubai, okay, where you'll see it, it's like the title is Go Towards God. And after that talk, where for a long time I didn't give the talks after that, but after that talk, exactly after that talk, when I was walking back into the mall, Dubai Mall, in my inner realms, I was just for a second feeling all the moderators just clapping for me. Okay? I didn't understand at the time, but I completely put it away, and I got a panic attack that I was bringing people's attention to me when it should have been to the system admin. And I broke. I got terrified. I was like, fuck. Have I accidentally taken a person's faith? This is why now in the talks I tell you go to the system admin directly. It is ridiculous how much better life is. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, it was proven. I didn't have, like, you could go hear the earlier talks what my view was. All right, guys. All right, chat section. Nice, we have something. Somebody in the chat section says, I am looking for peace and a moral contribution from you. Yeah, guys, war is messed up. It did. I saw videos too, and it made me feel like it made me feel ashamed, incredible shame. I like in the earlier talks, I gave solutions to wars on the planet. And I said that the UN has to hire the greatest video game companies. And instead of physical wars, the leaders of the nations need to fight the wars in cyberspace, and the video game companies can come and accurately create the militaries of each nation. Right? This way, the people don't have to die and the leaders fight it out, and whoever wins, wins, right? Because that's ultimately what it comes down to. Right? Like somebody could come and just, like, all the leaders in the United Nations could be like coin flip. Okay, we do a coin flip or something. I don't know. I mean, like, the thing is, I'm not a politician, guys. A part of me really wanted to study political science, but I don't know enough to understand all the angles of a situation. But I do understand that humans killing humans is fucked up. Like, we've passed that. We've passed that phase. If it's happening unnecessarily, I find. The world is so big that to fight over parts of it is weird, right? I mean, it could be like ports and like strategic locations and all that. I don't know, guys. Politics is effed up, right? Like, it's too much. And the reason I didn't want to go to politics, some people like humorously suggested it, and I was like, man. If I go become a politician, I will lose the ability to speak freely. This is why. You know, I saw a video of a guy in Palestine, and his face and his eyes, like, it was so obvious that he had seen such effed up horror that he just didn't understand it anymore, right? May God forgive mankind and bless the human species. That means if we were designed and created by the greatest force in being, we perhaps have an ability for a great performance. And the way I have understood is that there are fights that are physical and there are fights that are mental. Fights that are mental have to do with perspectives. Anyways, guys, please keep in mind, the meaning of life is not per se to get to just know your soul, like know yourself. It's not just that. Because at least for a Muslim in Islam, in the holy book, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says the soul is the secret of God. So if we pull the string of ourself and at the end of it it's a secret, it's Mysterian. That means there's a fact component to it, it's unknowable. Then the purpose is, in some sense, to act. So if the actor suddenly is like, I'm not Charlie, like the character in the film said, I'm Bob, that lives like in a different place, in different life, the director's gonna be like, buddy, play your role, man. Like, you're not here to suddenly like realize that you were like something else, right? Not just only that, right? like the director's like, play your role, and then the next scene, and then the next actors come, and then the next actors come, and it keeps going. And so for me, what's fascinating in this lifetime, I'm 30, so I'm pretty much halfway there. Like, maybe not halfway, I don't know. But I would like to experience the greatness of human honor. I would like to see what it would look like, the most advanced, incredible, organized, like, collectively organized behavior of man. Like, it's like, you see, right now in 2024, there is wars. But in 2044, it's going to be opposite. Nations are just going to be like, if they have extra funds, they just help other nations. Where everybody's going to be building up everybody else, because together we are all sub-nations of the nation of humanity. The ultimate archetype is the human experience. If you're human, you're one of us. You might psychologically not behave human, but you can. So as long as you can be human, right? But what I'm saying is, ultimately, it's in the hands of the Creator. And may God protect us all and forgive us all. There's something that, if somebody tells me what's the secret to success, I used to say efficient vision in 2023, but now I will tell you, talk to God, pray, just pray. Sincerely consider that there's a system admin, and watch what happens. You will see something that the metaphysics and philosophies of a decade could not prove. The living power, the original power, is greater, Egotistical imperfection, upon realizing its imperfection, lets go of the imperfection and is in the presence of perfection. God's life is perfect, even though man's life may be imperfect. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. All praise due to the Lord of the worlds. Thank you for listening, and thank you for keeping me company. And thank you for being here. Good night.